number 12, receive presentation regarding economic development program in Mineral Wells.
Mayor, City Council. It's my understanding you want an overview of what is currently going on and what has been, how we've been doing economic development and what.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Am I close enough? The majority of the candidates that we work with are referred to us from the Chamber of Commerce. Now, these companies, candidates, companies, whatever, fall into three categories. There's the out-of-state manufacturer that has determined that all of a sudden they've determined that they're selling an awful lot of product into North Texas, and they're paying a lot of freight. So they come in or send somebody into the DFW area to see about either relocating there or adding another manufacturing plant. So they start looking around there, find it's kind of expensive, and work their way out, start calling chambers. And when the chamber gets the call, then I talk to them.
And I don't mean to interrupt, who is us when you're saying, is it the Area Growth Council, Industrial Foundation? Who is the chamber referring business to?
To me.
Steve Busher. Thank you.
Second category is a manufacturer that's located in the Metroplex. And when they started business years ago, they were out in the country, and all of a sudden they're in the middle of town. And they're either being forced out or they want out because they can't expand. They start looking around the area. They start calling chambers, looking for who's interested in having them come to town. When we get that call, chamber calls me and I get in touch with them. Third category, existing mineral wells or Palapana County manufacturers that are either in growth mode or get acquired by a larger company, and the acquiring company comes to us and wants to know just how bad do we want to keep them here. That's just the way the game is played. With those, so we work with them. Now, we also have outreach. We've worked with the Wall Street Journal. We've placed ads on both coasts. Dallas Morning News, several other out-of-town Texas newspapers. No results. We've gone to 2 trade shows, both aviation related, one national in Vegas and one in Fort Worth. No results. We participated in the California industry move out in the early 90s. California, being clever as they are, decided they're going to run industry out of the state. So they leased or rented or whatever you do the Anaheim Convention Center. And then they brought states and cities from around the country in and put booths in there, and all the local companies wandered around trying to figure out where they wanted to go. It's kind of clever for the companies, not for the state. But anyway, I went 3 years. We had one excellent relocation out of it. It was Electromedical Products International. They came here and have, well, they're probably 200 times their sales volume at this point. They've grown a lot. Dallas Chamber, we've worked with them on half-a-dozen projects, but nothing has come out of it. Weatherford Economic Development. They had a project going with a company called Sundance Die Cut. The building they were going to put them in Weatherford fell through. So I worked with them and we put them in a building out at Walters. Then they referred Raised Refrigeration over here, with a small 1 or 2 man deal. But we found a place for them. And then they advised us when Kennedy Sausage had put the word out that they were going to leave Weatherford. And we started working with them. They're now Texas Best Proteins. They changed their name, and they're located at Interstate 20 and 281, basically. And we put that deal together. Parker County Economic Development, we are working with them on a few projects right now. We have referrals. True Test, a company that we got down here, referred Agricultural Sales Company to us, and we put them in a building. Watkins Metal referred EL Farmer Trucking, and we got them a facility and put them in a facility out at Walters. Metroplex Welding referred Pump and Coil Tubing. We put them in a building. The Texas Capital Fund personnel, actually the people that work down there, they get calls from people thinking, well, where are we gonna go and who's gonna pay for it? They referred Hydroscience Technology, True Test, Peddling Nets, Watkins Metal, and Texas Building Products to us. Local realtors have brought a few companies to the table. Only two came to fruition. That was BJ Services, which is their big 47-acre campus in the new, what we call the new industrial park. And then when they left, a realtor also brought in AMR, the American Medical Response. Governor's Office of Economic Development sends out RFPs on an ongoing basis, 2 or 3 a week. However, they often have specific criteria that knocks us out. They want you to be located on Interstate 20 or Interstate 35, or they want you to be within 30 minutes of DFW, or they require an existing 300,000 square foot building, which we're a little short of. But anything that appears we're close to, we send applications in. And normally, when these happen, you don't even know who they are. All you have is some specs that you're responding to. No successes with that. Once we identify a candidate, we can begin talking to them. We can define in general what they might be looking for, the size of their business, number of employees, growth potential, specific needs and requirements. That's enough information to prepare an initial written and digital proposal to the company. The proposal we send out does a review of the potential incentives, talks about the site location or locations that we have in the area that appear to fit their needs. Based on the discussions that we have with them, we put together project cost projections, because often they don't know either. And using that information, we put together uses and sources of funds and variable assumptions. That's important because anything where I have to put a number in that they didn't give me, I explained to them where it came from, but that's our assumption. And we don't know what their sales tax volume, because they sell so much retail, so much wholesale, etc. We also get into the area. Obviously, the community, we're interested in sharing our community. We tell them about the resort. We've got some nice resorts around this area, immediate area. We spend, there's 9 pages of just Mineral Wells, Powhatan County community, what's going on here. There's a couple pages on ISD, Weatherford College has 2-3 pages, the hospital. And then we get down in the weeds and explain to them the Texas Capital Fund, how it works, the timing, and show them contracts and workarounds that we've got to show them that we've done this, we know what we're talking about. Although the candidates are certainly interested in our community, our schools, our healthcare, our probability to provide the workforce necessary and housing availability, the first thing they always want to discuss is incentives. We usually include the majority of the following state and federal incentives. New market tax credits. We put this in because we're trying to get them over here to talk to us. We've never been able to complete a new market tax credit project. Now, since the city has become a CDE, a certified development entity, and hopefully we'll get our own allocation, that would be a whole different story. Because what that amounts to is like a 20% free equity hit to the deal. So it's very good for the company. We have 20-year property tax reduction. The capital fund and the state law combine to provide this property tax savings amounting to 25 to 40%. That savings is because state law says if the city owns a property and leases it to an operating company, the property taxes on the land and improvements is based on the leasehold value rather than the fee simple or the appraisal value. And that's how you get your 20 to 40% savings. They have a calculation, the state provides the numbers, you just plug the numbers in and see what their savings will be. The capital fund, what it does is offer a interest-free 20-year loan. So somebody comes over and sees a property that will suit their needs and it's available for $480,000. We make an application to the state gives $480,000 to the city buys the property from whoever owns it and leases it back to the operating company for $2,000 a month. Now that's a real sweet lease rate to start with. But at the end of 20 years, if they keep renewing their lease, they can buy it for $1. So it's really an interest-free loan, but it is styled as a lease. And by being styled as a lease, they don't owe that $480,000, if that's what the deal was. They just owe the rest of whatever 3-year lease they're in. So on their balance sheet, they don't show this $500,000 debt. They just show their lease for whatever term they're in, which means they can go to the bank and have less problems borrowing money to buy inventory, new equipment, or whatever. So it's a real benefit to the company. We also have the Texas Enterprise Project designation. That's where the city will make an application for a designation for a given project. And what that does is allow the company to recoup the sales tax they paid on any material that went into the construction project. And it allows them to recoup what they pay in sales tax on the electricity bill that they pay every month for up to 5 years. And that's all dependent on job creation. Then there's the Texas Enterprise Grant. This is the Texas deal closing pot of money. Extremely political, and I tell people that right up front. You can either have an enterprise grant or an enterprise project when you put a package together. You can't have both. We almost always say let's go with the project because we've never received the grant, and we tried real hard, spent a lot of time and money on a recent deal and lost it at the last minute and went back to the project, but they're hard to come by. Then there's infrastructure grant funding. In addition to the loan for the real estate, actual grant funds are available to get infrastructure to the site. And those are grants, you don't have to repay them. A combination of these incentives will normally equate to an incentive package from $4 to $10 million. This package requires no cash or resource commitment from the city. Historically, the packages would and did contain free land from the Industrial Foundation if the company built a new facility on the land that we would give them. However, we're out of land, so that's no longer part of the deal. Once the deal structure is agreed upon with the candidate, and we do the initial due diligence, the city manager, mayor, and the Industrial Foundation board are all brought into the loop, and the deal's laid out the way it appears that it could work. Additional due diligence is performed on the candidate. However, the depth of the due diligence is often reduced if the community's financial involvement is negligible. All resources are provided with a clawback. If the city ends up required to financially participate in the project, then the whole thing has to come back for the council's approval. The reason for the lack of real deep due diligence is the fact that the banks or other financing entities involved will be doing a substantial inspection of the candidate's financial strength and background And as much as they're the ones that have the major risk, so we rely on them to some degree.
Just to clarify, do y'all have any questions, Council? Excuse me, Council.
Thank you very much.
I have a few questions if you have time, Mr. Butcher.
Sure.
So I know you started off by saying these referrals that come into you, and I'm trying to understand how our structure works. Is it the IF, Industrial Foundation, because our budget line item is $50,000, and that goes to the Industrial Foundation. So are you with the Industrial Foundation or the Area Growth Council? Can you explain how that works?
Yeah, I'd like to go over that again with you. The Industrial Foundation and the city and the county and the chamber got together 25 years ago and said, we have a common goal, that's economic development. And so they decided to create the Mineral Wells Palo Pinto County Area Growth Council. That is a joint venture. As I said before, it doesn't really exist other than being an operation that everybody's involved with. One person from each of those entities is on the steering committee for the Area Growth Council. And those 4 individuals, in their positions, not people, those 4 individuals choose a 5th, and it has been, for the entire time, whoever was in charge of the local newspaper.
Who is on that steering committee for the city?
The mayor.
Myself?
I believe that is your position, yes, sir.
So does that mean I have access to every deal that y'all done, so we can, when we're trying to figure out a better way to do economic development, so would I have access to come and look at all the documents y'all have done in regards to the past 24 years?
You could certainly try.
Well, I mean, I'm asking if I can.
Well, you can. I don't know how many documents will be available, but you can certainly.
Because I know you mentioned here that y'all do clawback in deals, and I haven't really looked into many deals, but except the ML plan, I've looked into it, and I didn't see any clawback in there.
I would like to correct you on that. You saw the clawback with the signatures. It just got thrown out, as I told you. There was a clawback deal, and it was thrown out because the bank required that to finance the overall package.
Interesting. Well, I have plenty of questions if you would like to stay and answer a few of them. In regards to this, if we're trying to figure out a better way to do economic development, I think it's good to understand how we've been doing it in the past, and make sure that this is the best for our city. I'm understanding, Lance, you're in full agreement with the way we've been doing our economic growth and development, because I would look at some of the information documents I have and questions in regards to Mr. Butcher and have a lot of questions and concerns. But if you're in 100% agreement with him, I will back off and defer to you.
I'm not entirely sure what your question is, man.
I'm asking if you have 100% confident in the Area Growth Council and Mr. Butcher, then I will hold back my questions and my documents. The documents I'll be presenting later on, but I'll hold back questions for tonight. I just want to understand where your position is.
I think the Industrial Foundation, Steve working as a part of that, have done a good job for this community. I think you have to look at it in the perspective of the history of this entire effort. I think the resources that have been provided to it. The Industrial Foundation has put in far more money, correct me if I'm wrong, Steve, have put in far more money into economic development into this community over the last 60 years than has the city or the county. So I think we have to look at some of this, within that perspective. So I think there's been quite a bit of success over time. Could we look at some other avenues and some other approaches? Certainly, that's a reasonable thing to do, I would suspect.
So in your opinion, you think they're doing a good job? And I'll suffice and let that be that you have confidence in them, and let my questions end here.
Oh, yes, I think they have done a good job over time. Again, I think you have to look at the historical perspective, and the amount of resources available to the entire effort.
With all due respect, to the mayor, I would like to, mention that I do have a concern about the use of the word better in terms of looking for someone to do a better job before we do a comprehensive look at our economic development, because, if I'm an employee and somebody comes to me and says, we're looking for somebody to do a better job, there's already a language of judgment put on the Minerals Industrial Foundation / Area Growth Council, and I think that we need to be open-minded here and say, I believe, and this is just my personal opinion, I believe that, again, we need to be open-minded in the consideration of our Economic Development Task Force, and open-minded to the fact that this organization has done the best with the resources it has, or it hasn't. And so I just question the use of that word better as potentially judgmental too quickly.
Yeah, you're accurate in that assessment. I am making a judgment that I do not think it is performed well at all. In fact, I think it borders on fraudulent, in my opinion.
You're entitled to that.
Thank you very much. Anybody else have any other questions? I'll hold to my promise to Lance.
Thank you for your presentation, Mr. Butcher.
Do any citizens have any comments?
This wasn't a public hearing.
I know that. You can go ahead and come forward. You need to keep it to no more than 3 minutes, sir.
My name's Caleb Shipman. I reside at 5211 Boletta Drive, Mineral Wells, Texas. Title 7, Practices and Professions Related to Real Property and Housing. Subtitle A, Professions Related to Real Estate. Chapter 1101, Real Estate Brokers and Sales Agents. Subchapter A, this chapter may be cited as the Real Estate License Act. The Commission may suspend or revoke a license issued under this chapter or take other disciplinary action authorized by this chapter if the license holder, while engaged in real estate brokerage, makes a false promise that is likely to influence a person to enter into an agreement when the license holder is unable or does not intend to keep the promise, pursues a continued and flagrant course of misrepresentation, or makes false promises through an agent or sales agent, through advertising or otherwise. If you look at the AGC website, nwed.org, which Mr. Butcher runs, operates, or is in charge of, I assume. Out of the 16 industrial properties on that site, 4 of them are listed correctly, 8 of them have incorrect or incomplete information, and 4 of them have been sold for some months. That's a 25% accuracy rate for the city-sponsored site, so yeah, we need to do better. In addition to that, I hold in my hand a packet, a booklet, of the Precision Ammunitions Company. Here's what irritates me about the Precision Ammunitions Company deal that Steve Butcher put together. In this packet is a home located on 15 acres. Actually, correct acreage would be 14.55. How do I know that? That's my home. My house. That Steve Butcher put inside of a packet to give away to a company. Are you hearing me? My house. If this was yours, you'd be pissed. He broke the law. He's in violation of the Texas Real Estate Licensing Act, of which I will be filing a complaint against him, and I will win. We need to do better. We've gone too far. The man makes $70,000 to $80,000 a year. Taxpayer dollars out of this city come $50,000. We can do better. No questions asked. There is no reason why a man should ever put in a packet without ever talking to a person about his own personal property, ever giving him an offer, ever giving him representation. It's the law. It's called Texas Real Estate Licensing Act. Read up on it. Every person in this room can do their own research if they choose to. But this was my house that he put into a packet of the proposed site for the Precision Ammunitions Company, and it included my home. I have more pictures of my home, aerial site pictures, that I'm just blown away that we would continue to give this man money, taxpayer dollars, for economic development when he does things like this. I'm appalled at even this council or even the city manager who would stand behind the man who does this.
Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, may I respond?
No, I think we're done.
Oh, I'm not done.
I think that the man deserves a right to answer that, allegation since we're already out of order anyway.
Fair enough, then Caleb, if you wanna respond to this, you're welcome to after this.
The poor man's house was not his house when this started.
That's not true.
Stand by, I'll actually speak to this. I actually have the documents to actually prove that you're lying about that.
Well, you've got bad documents. I was working
come
with
from the
Mr.
county
Presley, who
courthouse, sir.
owned the entire property. He was trying to sell the entire property when the ammunition manufacturer wouldn't come up with any money to hold it. He went ahead and sold it to the good minister.
This is not a trial, and I don't believe it's the council's, we don't have the authority to even resolve this issue.
Okay.
So I,
Let's move on to the
No
next
issue.
item, thank you.
It was December 2015. I owned my house since April 14.
This is absolutely embarrassing.
Item number 13, discuss and take possible action